Why is Socrates so important to modern society? It's a good question. Now this is a video essay, so let's begin. Interesting fact, Socrates did not write anything down. Therefore, the knowledge we have on Socrates mainly comes from Plato. Who is Plato? It's a good question. He was a student of Socrates. So let's set the scene in Socrates' time. In art and drama, Athenian culture was highly artistic, with significant achievements in sculpture and pottery that depicted aspects of everyday life, mythology and notable events. During the time of Socrates in ancient Athens, the primary currency used was drachma. Now drachma was a silver coin, not Bitcoin, wrong time period. And this became the standard unit of currency in the Greek world. So I hope I've painted a little picture of Athens because this is the contextual backdrop of Socrates' environment. So let's start with Socratic questioning. I think that's a good beginning. What is Socratic questioning? Ironically, it's a good question. Well, Socratic questioning is like a method of inquiry. In a simple sense, you ask questions to encourage self-discovery, and the purpose is to develop rational thinking and develop deeper insights. Now, Socrates would go into Athens and engage in discussions. The purpose was not to undermine, but to explore. No confirmation bias, no preconceptions, just exploring the dialogue and using techniques to get a deeper and better insight. Okay, so to explain this properly, I think we need to go to the whiteboard animation. So let's say someone is trying to sell you a product and they're stating they have proven strategies for financial success. So this product is going to give you financial success. Now you may ask the following questions if you're going to use the Socratic method. So number one, you may say, why do you think that's true? Number two, you may say, well, is your method the only way? And if so, why? And number three, how did you arrive at the conclusion that this is the only way? Now this would be like a salesman kryptonite. And for those that don't know, kryptonite was like this green material that would destroy Superman, but I digress. But in all seriousness, Socratic questioning is a good way of exploring possibilities and illustrating shadows in people's arguments. And if there's one thing that I know, is that people have a lot of shadows in their arguments. So let's give a final example. So John is thinking about going to university and he asks himself the following questions. Why? Why should I go to university? What would be the success of the university experience? Would it be living independently? Would it be getting a good job? Would it be finding my community? Is university the only way to be successful? And why would I think that's true? So here, John is using questions to understand if the university situation is the right situation for him. Okay, final example on Socratic questioning. Now, one of my favorite questions is, why do you think that's true? Here's three examples. Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer of all time. My response. Tell me, why do you think that's true? Everyone knows that Einstein was the greatest scientist of all time. My response. Tell me, why do you think that's true? Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan is the greatest lyricist of all time. My response. Tell me, why do you think that's true? This question encourages the person to explain the context, and context is very important. And those statements, they may be true, but we want to know why they think it's true. Okay, so let's move on. So I want to talk about the statement that Socrates made, which is, the unexamined life is not worth living. Now, a lot of people, I think, don't understand what this means. They don't understand the context. So let me try and explain this. And I got this example from the book Philosophy. So I'm going to explain it in phases. Phase 1. To live a good life, we need to make a distinction between good and evil. Phase 2. We can only establish these differences by asking questions. Phase 3. A life of ignorance does not understand good and evil and therefore lacks morality by default. Phase 4. Morality and knowledge, they have a relationship. And finally, phase 5. Therefore, the life which is unexamined is not worth living. Now, I find this level of unpacking a statement to be so refreshing. Now, remember, it's not just about the statement, it's about how you arrived at the statement. For example, if someone says pain is the process of success, what do they mean by pain? What type of pain are you talking about? Are you talking about failing an exam? Or are you talking about the pain of a bereavement? And what do you mean by success? You see, unpacking a statement is so important. It's so important for effective comprehension. So let's talk about self-development. Socrates, he believed in self-development. And this is evidenced by the following quote: "Employ your time in improving yourself by other men's writings, so that you shall gain easily what others have labored hard for." End of quote. This is an insight into learning from other people's insights. From this perspective, we can use others as a blueprint to map our way forward. Now, I was tempted to say map our way forward to success, but what is success? And how do we know when we've achieved success? Is it money? Is it resources? Is it love? Does the love have meaning? Does life have meaning? How do we know that the meaning has meaning? Now, can we take Socratic questioning too far? I think we can. Anyway, look how big self-development is in today's society. And self-development is such impactful. It's so impactful in today's society. Does self-development ever end? Or is it internal in nature? And why is that? And Socrates, he was the king of self-development from the very beginning. So let's discuss Socrates and capitalism. And let's take time to go back to whiteboard animation. Now, obviously, Socrates did not directly discuss capitalism, but he disposed the pursuit of wealth for its own sake. Perhaps Socrates would be disgusted in the contemporary world that we live in. The pursuit of fast cars, mansions, and material things, they seem soulless. Of course, one can have material wealth and have wisdom, but a person who is defined only by their wealth leaves large gaps in other areas. It appears Socrates is critical of the symptoms of capitalism: greed, lack of empathy, corruption. One could argue that capitalism is not these things by themselves, but it can foster an environment that brings these negative character traits. Socrates was more invested in knowledge, wisdom, and discovery. And I think this is an important point. Capitalism may not necessarily be a bad thing. Opportunities to start a business, provide value, build wealth. But is there such a thing as ethical capitalism? And if there is ethical capitalism, does that mean capitalism could be a good thing? If the implementation of capitalism is bad, does that mean capitalism is a bad thing? And this leads to the next point, which is, what is a good life according to Socrates? There seems to be some clear ideas on this, which can be defined in the following ways: virtue, knowledge, pursuing more knowledge, moral principles, and self-development. Now, virtue and moral principles, they have a relationship. Indeed, virtue shows high moral standards. So how do we measure the currency of moral standards? Now, if Socrates was alive today, maybe he would have a YouTube channel encouraging Socratic questioning, moral principles, and battling capitalism. Or perhaps he would be proposing an ethical capitalism, or perhaps he would simply be an inspiring logical proponent of self-development. So here's my conclusion. In a world of confirmation bias to big products, services, and to create influences, Socratic questioning is essential. In a world of influence and attention, it's important to understand the context, understand capitalism, and understand the mutual potential of this relationship. And self-development is an important path to take in becoming the best version of ourselves. So in a simple sense, Socrates is important to modern day society for the following reasons. Number 1, his contribution to philosophy. Number 2, his principles on critical thinking. Number 3, his commitment to moral integrity. Number 4, the pursuit of truth as opposed to the pursuit of wealth for wealth's sake. And finally, number 5, the commitment to use Socratic questioning to develop self-awareness and understanding of the world. So thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the content. If you want to support the channel, like and subscribe.